Edition of Extra, where we are hosting cabinet meetings. All this week in studio are the directors and deputy directors of the various government agencies dealing with finances. In studio tonight, the acting director of the Department of Administration, George A. Santos, the director of BBMR, Benita Menglotnya, the director of Rev and Tax, John Camacho, and the deputy director of DRT, Marie Benito. Thank you for joining us. If you'd like to ask them a question, give us a call at 632-TALK. That is 632-8255, the number that you see on your screen. Well, Benita, how bad really is the government's finances?
Well, Sabrina, we are still trying to quantify that, and we have preliminary numbers. But we have, like I mentioned earlier, we have enlisted the help of the public auditor to help us quantify and confirm those unprogrammed liabilities.
Yeah, as the fiscal policy team, how often do you guys meet, and take us through, I guess, a meeting?
Well, we've been meeting like 2 to 3 times a week, and you know we are working on a cash flow projection of so that we can plan out how we can contain this the expenditures of the government, and you know map out all the different obligations that needs to be met, you know, on a daily basis.
Yeah, the governor, through executive order last week, he's mandated that each Gov Guam agency produce a report by the end of the month detailing how each agency can cut costs and likewise raise revenue. What are some of your suggestions and maybe even advice you can give to some of these directors? George?
Thank you, Sabrina. When you look at a budget, usually it's 85% personnel. So I think that's where you're going to have to look at, because everything else is chump change. You can't save too much on the other categories because they've been so drastically reduced. So personnel is going to be your number one area for finding ways to reduce your costs, and that's where you're going to have to look at it. And I think a lot of agency directors are going to have to look at those units that are unfunded mandates, things that are required by law, but you know you don't have the resources to implement it. And you've got to point that out and say either we fund it or we put it in abeyance for a while. So I really think those are the areas where you're going to have to look at. And the third item I think would be your technology. The acceleration of technologies has allowed us to, when I was Director of Administration in 1979-80, we had over 230 field positions. When I came back to the agency in January 3rd, there are less than 130 field positions. So something must have happened to dramatically cut the number of personnel in the department. For them to do the type of work that they've done, you know, I'm proud to be a part of this group, because this is the group that has survived a cut of 230 field positions to 130. Something must have happened to really improve their efficiency. So that's where I would go if I was looking at the budget for each department.
Benita, what are some of the ideas that have been thrown out there during these fiscal policy team meetings to cut costs?
Well, the cost containment would be one of them. Would be like looking at within your department, and if a position is not really essential, then you try not to fill that. And like what George had mentioned on the all others category, it's very limited, because a lot of the departments are already working on a bare minimum. So it is very difficult to further cut the all others category. But what we're doing also is we try to recycle paper. We print front and back, and we also try to use the electronic media instead of printing. We use the email, and we scan and send documents to the email.
Well, I'd like to ask about increasing revenues and collecting, but first let's go to our phone line where Phil from GIGO is on the line. Welcome to Extra.
Yes, good evening. A question for John Camacho. John, for those people who have are waiting refunds, could you briefly explain Form 1040X?
$1040X?
Yes, 1040.
Well, 1040X is usually used to amend your original tax return filed with the department. An example, let's say you understated your income or even understated your expenses, then you fill that form out and then you actually asking the government that this is really your corrected liability and maybe even corrected refund. So you use it to amend your original return.
You know, shortage of manpower has always been what you'd hear from DRT
Right.
in terms of why tax refunds aren't being paid and why taxes aren't being collected or enforced. What is DRT's goal in terms of collecting back taxes owed by businesses, and how much are we looking at that's owed?
Well, I guess the receivables, I think we've cut down the receivables from 100 million down to, I think roughly we're about $80 million right now. So what we're doing right now is, what part of that revenue enhancement is, we're looking at those old accounts and those basically that are probably even held uncollectible, to see if these people are back. Most of them are gone, to see if they're back, and maybe we can collect from these receivables. And we're also looking at revenue enhancements for the department right now, because I think the problem is basically with budget and DOA, the cash flow. But if we don't improve our revenue collections for the government, you're never going to increase your revenue. So basically, we're looking at some of the industry audits right now that we're looking at, you know, whether it's real estate or construction industry, which is very active right now, and you know, even oil industries. We're looking at that right now. And another thing that is ongoing with revenue and tax right now is basically the real property tax. We're working a co-partner with the Department of Public Works which is a tax mapping that will identify untaxed property for going back as far as 1993, because that's the last time they did the evaluation. So, you know, I think that this project will be probably completed by March, which will probably bring in more revenues for the government.
Unfortunately, we are out of time.
Yeah.